In a related development, President Akufo-Addo has revealed the rationalization of the banking sector undertaken by his government saved the deposits of over 1,147,000 Ghanaians and spared the country a banking crisis. Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the new Standard Chartered Bank head office on Wednesday, the president, however, says this has cost the state 12.7 billion cedis.
Banks caught up in these malpractices became insolvent and relied on liquidity support from the Bank of Ghana. What this meant was that without injection of liquidity from the Bank of Ghana, they were bound to fail and collapse, with depositors losing their entire savings and all their workers losing their jobs. A responsible government and responsible regulator, the Bank of Ghana, had to intervene to ensure that we did not have a banking crisis. And that is exactly what happened. 12.7 billion Ghana cedis of public funds, made up of an 8 billion CD bond issued by the Ministry of Finance, and 4.7 billion CDs of liquidity support from the Bank of Ghana, was injected into the 7 banks that failed. GCB Bank took over the affairs of Capital Bank and UT Bank, and a new state-owned bank, the Ghana Consolidated Bank, was created out of the 5 other failed banks, i.e. Sovereign Bank, Unibank, Construction Bank, Royal Bank, and Base Bank. These measures saved not only the deposits of 1,147,336 Ghanaians and their businesses and the people they employ, but also minimized job losses in the banking sector. The rationalization and cleanup of the financial sector were necessary to safeguard the health and strength of the economy. I've said it before, and let me reiterate, that those responsible for the sequence of activities that led to the crisis in quote will face the full brunt of the law if they are found to have broken the law and suffer all the consequences prescribed by law.
Well, joining me via Skype right now is Dr. Daniel Sedo. He's a financial consultant. Thank you very much, Dr. Sedo. Now, just listening to the president talked about the fact that a lot was done by government, or the intervention by government prevented what could have been a banking crisis. Can we confidently say that we don't actually have a banking crisis, considering the complaints we're getting from these indigenous banks?
Good evening, if you can hear me. Certainly we have challenges, but the challenge is being managed. There's a lot of bravery being exhibited, but we must appreciate the fact that there's what we call the aftershock effect, and we would necessarily have to go through that. This is just the beginning of the aftershock. It will translate into so many other things, and we need to brace ourselves as we get through the effects.
All right, so we take the case of GN Bank, and we've seen the chairman of the group, GN Group, go about try to appeal to customers to cease the panic withdrawals. Is this the case of the banks, the people withdrawing their monies because they've lost confidence in the indigenous banks, or there's more to it?
No, it's a symbol of flight to safety. Let's remember that this money belongs to these people, and so they must seek their interests. They trusted the banks, but they were disappointed. And so the least thing that happens, they would have to respond. So they must move their monies to a place that they think is safe, which is normal. If you take this country, we've taken customers for granted, but the customers are, and they are being responsive. They are rational beings. Look at what is happening today in this country. Monies are locked up in banks. Clients can't get their money. Meanwhile, one would expect that interest that is paid by financial institutions should be going up at this time. Now that there are difficulties, there's non-performance on loans, one would expect that interest rates should be going up and encourage people to leave.
We're having a bit of a challenge with the Skype line to Dr. Daniel Sedo. We may probably have to switch to the telephone and get to listen to him make his submission. Yes, Dr. Sedo.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm just saying that we need to analyze the situation. Clients have money to the banks. Their challenge is trying to get these monies out. A new bank has been formed. There's still liquidity challenges people can see. There are microfinance entities that are struggling. So if you are a rational customer, what you'll be looking out for is what we call the flight to safety. How you can move your money quickly into a safe zone. Now, one would expect that policy makers would start looking at inching interest rate as a means of encouraging people to leave their money to the financial institutions. But interest rates is rather going down, so they are losing value. Now, the other side is that the dollar is getting stronger than the cedi. And also, people are losing money because their monies are no longer working for them. So their disposable income is also going down.
Yeah.
So the Ghanaian today is very rational and smart enough to think through these things. They are better off keeping their monies than leaving them in the hands of somebody they can't trust. So it's basically a trust issue, and we need to work harder at. Certainly we need banks, but we need to work very hard to win the confidence of people who come to deposit money in the banks. So Dr. Ingram is trying very hard. He needs to double his effort as well.
So what would you suggest that the Bank of Ghana does in this particular situation? Would the Bank of Ghana intervene in the case of GM Bank and make them, make more money available, liquidity support?
We would have to be careful. Bank of Ghana has done a lot, and has done a lot with the biggest one. Probably the biggest one is the Unibank. Where would Bank of Ghana be getting money to go and give liquidity support? In ordinary terms, it means we have to pay more tax. So if we are willing as a people to pay more tax for the liquidity to be generated, then fair enough. But other than that, we need to talk to ourselves. We need to encourage people who look after our collective assets to do better than what they have done previously. They need to come out and give us assurances and demonstrate that they mean their words. It's not like trying to say things that they don't mean. And we should also take out the politics. So if I have my money in your bank, you must show me evidence that, yes, we are solid. Make that evidence available to all of us to analyze and say, yes, you are good. You are liquid enough. You can convert the hard assets to liquid assets easily. Then with that kind of information, we can assure ourselves that, look, it's okay to keep the monies in the bank. It's a long way to go. And the banks would have to get themselves ready and do a lot of hard work.
But one thing we can both agree on is that with these panic withdrawals will sink any bank.
Certainly so. I mean, if you take your money to the bank, it's not that your money sits idle in the bank. Anytime you want it, you get it. That is not how it works. The philosophy is you bring it, you can come and take. As you are taking, somebody is bringing. So there's a certain float banks work with. Now, the money you give to the banks is what they call the liability. They convert your money into assets. The assets they invest in, if they are good, if they are liquid, if they are convertible, it makes it flexible for them. But if they put your money into a hard asset and you are looking for physical cash, it's very difficult to convert. So any bank that is not holding cash and there's a run on that bank will certainly fail. So it is not a good thing for us to see the mistrust for people to be behaving this way. That is why banks are always heavily regulated. And so the banks themselves must take regulation seriously to protect their business and to protect their customers.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Sedo. Dr. Daniel Sedo is a financial consultant, and he was giving us some insights into this banking crisis and trying to answer some of the questions that we had for him, and whether the Bank of Ghana should probably intervene in the situation of failing indigenous banks, such as the complaints we're hearing from GN Bank.